No, she
Like
knew who you were?
she knew who I was, and she used to go and watch me play in the schoolyard.
Wow, that's pretty intense.
And they said that if she had ever seen me mistreated, she would have just taken me back.
Hi, Louise.
Hi, Sarah.
How are you?
Oh, doing pretty good, actually. This book hits you though.
Oh man, I know. It's
Jean, we're going to be speaking with Jean pretty quick here.
we are on chapter 21, multicultural LGBTQ plus or international adoptive families. So we a lot of this covered Angela Tucker covered in her book.
Yeah.
Jean talks to different people and has different stuff, but this the recurring theme is similar.
Yeah, it's interesting. It starts off, I wonder if it starts off with a quote from Julie Eder. Is she
I
related
I was wondering if she was
to
related to
Isaac?
Isaac Eder. Well, he
Yeah.
isn't he quoted in the book
Yes, he
as well,
is.
so
I'm
could be.
wondering. And she said, I'm very sad my sons had to have me. I wish they lived in a world where I hadn't been necessary to them. So I'm guessing that is Isaac's mom.
It sounds like an aware adoptive parent.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
They do a lot of posting together, so I'm guessing she's been through a lot with him.
and she talks right out the gate about, choosing to adopt a
Hmm.
child from another race or country. It's like taking a large billboard sign with them into public spaces as if to say, hey, we're different. It has several effects. One causes some of the members to feel like they stand out when they don't want to.
Right.
And it makes the public feel as if they are, it's okay to question them, you know.
Right. To say
Oh, you
things.
must be
Oh,
adopted, or, where are you from? Or,
yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting, is it? Because that is different for like people. We don't normally get that. Like we
mm-hmm.
didn't get that.
Yeah.
It is like a big billboard. I like how she said that. And she has the
I was
stories.
thinking it's so
Hmm.
funny. I was with my mom recently, my
Yeah.
adoptive mom, and I mean, I'm telling you, I'm 5'9". She's 5'2", maybe now after shrinkage,
Yeah.
and maybe 5'3", maybe shorter. But someone was like, "Oh, you look just alike." Because when they said, "Oh, she's like, this is my daughter." Oh, you look just alike. I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" She has deep brown eyes. They're really wide set. She's
Totally different, your mom. I've met your mom. You look nothing alike.
nothing, but it's just.
People see what they want to see.
Exactly.
What was interesting is she has the stories, which I think are super important to read everybody's
Hmm.
story. And by the way, Jean will be on our panel in Minneapolis,
Yes.
and she
Yes.
will have
Another
these books
reason to come.
there.
Yes. I hope everyone who comes gets one of these books if they don't have it.
Yeah.
I really feel like this is should be
Oh,
front and center in the adoption conversation.
I do too. It's
So,
excellent. But
yeah, we can't go into all the stories, but it's really just, uh, you know,
yeah,
very insightful into what this is like. And then about
LBGQ,
the
LBGTQ plus.
ad adopting kids.
Yeah.
So couples who can't naturally have children, adopting.
That was an interesting discussion because there was one part I liked. There's Anthony Hines, who was interviewed earlier in this book. He's involved in a case where he trains adopted parents in complex family situations. I liked, he said, I don't feel that gay parents make good or bad parents. Gay parents are people. So people make good or bad parents. But he gets into, which I like that quote, people make good or bad parents.
Yes, it has nothing to do with
Like I've heard
anything
the
but
argument
that.
that gay people have experienced more discrimination, so therefore they make better parents. He says zero evidence of that. It's
Right.
really about being, understanding still adoption, the trauma for the child. And
Yes,
they
the
have more
trauma for the
complex
child.
and more complexities in that household for sure. Uh,
Yeah. 1997, it was New Jersey was the first state to allow same-sex couples to adopt jointly statewide. It's just so
yeah,
interesting how long things take and
yeah, I know.
um
It's an interesting conversation for sure. It comes up with friends I know, so it is an interesting conversation. There were some
yeah.
sad
And then
stories.
there's the, domestic adoptions and transracial and
Yeah.
But I like how she goes into the advice to parents.
Yes,
The
that's the best
advice
part.
given to adoptive parents by social workers and professionals has evolved and continues to do so. The blank slate theory is still believed to be the norm, which just blows my mind.
All
But
you need
why
is
does it blow
love.
my mind? Because we thought that really on some level, or we just didn't know about it until we started doing this work, right?
Right.
So
I
why
think
is that surprising?
we knew inside, we just didn't know how to deal.
Right. We
All
just
you
thought
need is love. Yeah,
maybe we were wrong. Something
right.
was wrong with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. All you need is love. BS. Just adopt. It's all the same. So
Yeah.
anyway, here are the just bullet points for advice to
Yeah.
parents. Ask for help. Surround your kids with
We always
like
say this.
always, live in diverse neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Talk about it. Like
Yeah.
don't do the colorblind thing and sweep it under the rug and
Nope.
that's where that love, it's all love is the only thing that matters comes like that's what people think.
Yeah. Yeah.
um and
And
then
support.
support them and their choices.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Allow them to have control over it.
yeah,
Acknowledge the world is open and imperfect. Listen to them. And then the international adoptions,
right.
that's a whole
Yeah, and
thing.
here's a Korean adoptee, saying the one thing I would ask them to do in the future is make everyone take sessions with a therapist first. That is another recurring theme.
Yes.
Therapy, therapy, therapy to
Yeah.
before you adopt.
Well, because it comes down to why are you adopting in the first place? There's some loss. We always say that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A
It's
social experiment
that's what I was just going to say. Yeah. It's a social experiment within
in
a
the
social
social
experiment.
experiment. Yeah,
And then
that's true.
kind of closes out the chapter with adoption is not a fairy tale. There is no one adoption story. The outside world wants adoption to be simple. As a lived experience for both adoptees and their parents is often anything but.
I'd say it's mostly anything but.
Exactly. Not
And it
often, mostly.
mostly. We're changing one word in there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
I might even go venture so far as to say always.
I know, right?
So,
Always anything but.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Well,
not an
uh,
easy thing.
we're closing in on the end of this book. It's hard to believe.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
we're gonna have our season finale with Jean. Then she'll be at our event.
mm-hmm.
Then she'll have books at our. It's like you have no excuse not to get this book by for everybody you
Yes,
know.
exactly.
I want everybody
So,
to own it.
all right. Well, I will see you in a minute for Diane.
See you in a minute.
Hello. Today we have someone coming to us from Marin County, California. Welcome, Diane. Happy to have you. Thanks for your patience in getting on.
Thank you. Very nice to be here, and thank you for having me.
We're excited. I like your art behind you. It's pretty. If you're on
Mm-hmm.
YouTube, you could see that, people.
Is that your art?
Yeah, that's
That
this
is
one.
my art. It's
Oh,
a photographic project,
Gorgeous.
beautiful.
and the series is titled In My Mother's Garden.
Mm.
Oh, that's interesting.
That could
Well,
have many meanings, I'm guessing.
And it does.
and it does,
Yes.
and it's beautiful. So everybody should go on YouTube and check that out. So tell us your story, how you want to begin.
Okay, well, I was born in 1964 in San Francisco, adopted 3 days later. Um, and
Private adoption or through an agency or?
private adoption through a lawyer. I didn't find that out until much, much later.
Yeah.
But private adoption, and grew up with two parents, and then they 8 months later had a natural child.
Oh,
So there were the two of us growing up in San Francisco. Um, my
so they
father,
were pregnant. I'm sorry, but they were pregnant.
and they didn't know.
Oh, and they didn't
There
know.
had been several miscarriages beforehand.
Okay.
And so they decided to adopt. And then as soon as I was there, another child.
Right.
My father was a doctor. My mother was a businesswoman. And I had, in many ways, a really great childhood.
Was the child that was born, your Irish twin, so to speak, were a boy or a girl?
A boy, my brother Leland.
And
Um,
just the two of you, they didn't adopt after that.
no, that was it. And no more children after that.
Okay.
And adoption was a big secret in a way. They told me again and again until I could understand what it was that I was adopted. So somewhere around 3.5, 4, 4.5, I understood what it was. And I didn't think that much of it. Just, okay, this is my normal. My brother wasn't. That's his normal. I didn't think it was a very big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yet at the same time, it was the one topic that we could never talk about in the house. So
Why is that? Did you get the hurt feelings or things like that?
hurt feelings also was something not to be noted but not acknowledged, and it was tremendously threatening to
Mm.
both of my parents.
Hmm.
That it was the one kind of dynamite or
Mm.
poison that could be put in to destroy the family.
Ah,
What
interesting.
kind of doctor was your father?
A cardiologist.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's
So
interesting. Yeah.
it wasn't quite a family secret. Their friends knew, I could say so, but then to go any deeper into it or to ask questions,
Did
uh,
they tell you anything about like, hey, oh, you're, the typical story we all got from that era.
Right.
My mother loved you so much she had to give you away. That kind of nonsense.
there was none of that. There was no mother, no origin. Simply, I was born in the hospital.
No
The
worries.
pediatrician saw this cute little redhead in the hospital and thought I was so cute, and they were looking for a child. So he told my parents about me, and they said, great, and brought me home. That was the entirety of the story.
Okay.
And I
It's
couldn't,
such a tender, like eventually one's going to ask questions. So it's
well, no,
amazing to me
because
that no one would think that one day you'll ask questions.
uh, the questioning that or asking questions was so explosive that no, I couldn't.
Mm.
Of course, I did internally.
Yeah.
I was immensely curious. And one thing that I did was when the house was quiet or people were out, I was searching the drawers. I went through
Mhm.
everything, hoping to find some papers that
Yeah.
told the story, that
And there
told
were
me
none.
anything. So I knew where everything was in the house. And I was, taking out the espresso cups in the kitchen and going underneath and going underneath the paper.
Really searching.
I mean, really searching,
Can I just say how progressive to have espresso cups in the 70s? I didn't have
somebody,
that in the Midwest.
No, I
yeah,
don't know if we
somebody had
did
been
either.
to
We had
Italy or,
Folgers.
Now,
Yeah.
how was your relationship with the rest of your family? So they're all three biologically related. You're the odd man out. Did you feel that?
well, it turned out that I really was the odd man out,
Mm-hmm.
just in terms of my personality, um, how I am in the world.
Yeah.
And they recognized that and they said that at various times. My brother a couple years ago said to me, "You are not like us."
Yeah. Like
And it,
occurs to him. Yeah.
yeah, and it was true.
Yeah.
I had a college roommate that came to visit, and she was stunned that this was my family. And I
Yeah.
asked her why. She said, these three people are vibrating on one level, and you're in a completely different place. It doesn't make sense
It's
Isn't
almost.
that
fascinating. It's
interesting?
so fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. So visually, I fit.
Yeah.
There were a lot of ways in which it made sense, but just am a very different person
Yeah.
than they are.
And
Every,
did you, oh, sorry, Louise, were you close to them
yeah.
growing up, or was it just, you couldn't question your origins, so if it was explosive, so did you feel like you were walking on tenterhooks most of your childhood?
In some ways, yes, and in other ways, no. My mother and I were always very close. It was difficult when I was about 13.
Mm-hmm.
The tension between why am I not like her? Why am I
Mm.
not doing the
Yes.
things that she wants me to do, becoming the person that she would like me to be, which is a miniature version of her.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a couple of years of working that out. My father and I were not that close, but he was really not close to anyone other than my mother, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
So that was his nature. And my brother and I divided the world in a sense that we were not close at that age, and we went to the same very small high school. So he could have math and science. I had art and history.
Mm-hmm.
He had basketball. I had theater. So we had different groups of friends, and we're clearly very different people.
Yeah.
But most of our lives after that have been fairly close.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. Like I was going to say this earlier, but every guest brings up something new for us. It's just
Mhm.
fascinating. And I'm like, I had that too at home. Like it was not safe to ask questions past I'm adopted. I could say it at a party. I could bring it up. And then there was a look, it was just shut down. I never, ever asked questions out loud to my parents.
Okay, yes,
I did
yes,
ask other people and I did look and I did wonder and all that, the same thing. But I think that's why I was so heavily guilted later, right? It's just interesting listening to you, how you can live there and it's known, but you can't talk about it. It's fascinating.
exactly.
Still blows my mind, this whole thing, adoption. Go on.
Oh, I
It's
know.
just mind blow.
Yes, yes.
So you
Yeah.
uh 13 rolls around. This is when the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
the differences start appearing,
Big
right?
time.
You become a
I,
person and that person isn't of them.
nope.
So what happened, like where does your life go from there?
Well, I was a very rebellious teenager. Looking back, I think adoption was very important to that, but I didn't have an awareness
Right.
of it at the time. There was a family friend, Nina, who was a psychiatrist who, when I was 16 or so, did say that to me that this is something you should need to pay attention to. This is key.
Mm.
And so she put that in my head, but it wasn't until later that I slowly came to the realization how core this is to
Hmm.
who I am as a person and to what my experience has been. I was always searching in the sense of searching all over the house, interested, thinking about asking family friends like that pediatrician for the story, but afraid to ask them as well that it
Yeah,
would get back to my parents.
of course.
So I did speak to Nina about it, who I knew could keep it quiet, but never did ask the pediatrician about that story, which turned out to be entirely false.
Of
So
course.
it wouldn't have made a difference anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
So
yeah.
what at what point, so did you go away to college? You were a rebellious teen, kind of what
I
started brewing and
Hmm.
Oh, I did go away to college, and at that point, one of the tensions was that I was very interested in art, always doing some art form early on that was dance. Then it became theater and writing. And then when I was in college, it was photography and the visual arts. And it didn't make any sense whatsoever to my parents. It's not only that they discouraged it because it's
Mm.
a difficult career, but it just they didn't understand it. So it was interesting. This just didn't seem like a viable way to live, a career path, a way to spend your time. And it turned out, as I found many years later, both my biological parents were artists.
I wondered. I bet
Yeah,
they are. Yeah.
yeah, and many people in the extended family as well.
Did you push that? Did you stay true to you and like, I'm going to do this? Or how did that
Oh, I
work? Good.
did, and it's interesting. They felt that they couldn't really get in the way of it, but they certainly didn't support it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that worked out. And there were a lot of attempts to get me to do something real as a career. Wouldn't you like to go to law school, dental school?
We'll pay for anything. Go business school. Right.
Yeah,
Interesting.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I remember my mother, so she was a financial analyst, and in the midst of one of these tensions about all of this, they sent me for career testing. And it was the kind of test where you see what, as a personality,
Hmm.
this individual is most suited for. And there were 120 different professions.
Was it Johnson O'Connor testing?
I'm not sure.
I got sent anyway. I got sent to that too. That's funny.
You did too. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. So there are 6 categories of career, and all of the arts came out first. It's like, well, you could be an actor, a visual artist, a
That's
dancer,
great.
this. Then the social fields, social work, teaching, all of that.
Yeah.
And number 120 was financial analyst.
So she gave up.
She gave up. It really had an impact. And I didn't try to do that. Do you remember that test? It
Yeah.
asks,
Oh, I was like a whole day. And Johnson O'Connor. I still
oh, is
remember
that what?
going, and I was kind of lost. It was the same thing here. Let's try to make you something. And interesting. That's so funny. It was going around, I think, in our time,
Yeah.
like things do. So what happened after that? College, or did
So
you?
college, I moved to Japan for a year and a half,
Oh,
which was great. Came back, went to graduate school in photography, and then made my way as an artist. Uh,
And were you wondering where you were from? I mean, were you starting to think like I'd like
mhm.
to find out who I am?
that never went away. I was always wondering, and I did work with Alma, Adoptees
Okay.
Liberty Movement Association, and
hmm
it took a very long time. I began, I think, when I was 16 or 17. Um,
Oh, so did you secretly go to Alma when you were 16 or 17?
yes,
No, that's so interesting.
I did. And eventually, wasn't until I was 30 that I discovered who my biological mother was. And immense amount of research, as you can imagine. And the non-identifying information that I got from the state of California, that was incredibly interesting, very helpful.
Oh,
But in any case, so finally, when I was 30, I discovered who she was. She had died 10 years before.
Oh,
God. Always,
how
right?
had she died?
It's a whole story in and of itself, probably a medical mistake,
Oh no.
but it's a little unclear. Died at 41.
Mm. Was she
So
in the Bay Area by you?
she had lived most of her adult life in Berkeley. She was from New York City,
Oh,
came out when she was pregnant and stayed. And one of the things about the search was that I always had the sense, as I was a child and later too, that she was watching me, that I could look up one day and she would be there. And her friends told me that she was,
No, she
that
knew who you were?
she knew who I was, and she used to go and watch me play in the schoolyard.
wow.
That's pretty intense.
And they said that if she had ever seen me mistreated, she would have just taken me back.
Oh. And what were the circumstances as to why she couldn't keep you? Was she not supported or?
Well, she was 20 when she got pregnant, out of a serious relationship, not married, not particularly involved with the man who it turned out to be. That's a whole nother story, which I'll get to in a moment. Um, Her parents were not supportive of her having the child. And this all happened in New York City. So she came to Berkeley and set up the adoption privately with a lawyer.
She did it herself.
She did it herself.
Yeah.
Um, and that was that.
That's a hard thing to do too. My mother did that. My biological mother set it up herself, and it was very like that's so strange. It's so predatory. These are young women, and they get in with somebody who the talk is the talk, and it's just interesting to poor
So,
thing.
so she went through this lawyer. Was the pediatrician involved or was that
No,
never true?
not at all. That was not
Oh,
true. That was a false story. I didn't figure it out until much, much, much later. At one point, after I already knew who she was, I wanted to figure out which lawyer it was. So I went to old phone books, looked up all the adoption lawyers in San Francisco at that time and called them all, found the right one.
Wow.
The week he was retiring, he was 90 years old. I spoke to him and he said, "Would you like your file?"
Wow.
So I got the entire file and read about what happened.
Really? I'm still blown away that she watched you
I
on the
know.
playground and stuff. It would be so hard not to take you. I mean, just to watch you. I don't know. That's so heartbreaking to me.
She was checking on me. She
Yeah,
wanted to
she
make
loves you.
sure.
Well, all that time. It's
Yeah.
special. Mm.
And she died young. Had she gone on to have other children? Did you have
She did.
siblings? Okay,
She
so you have
did.
siblings.
Yes. So she had another child, my sister Mia, uh, about 12, 13 years later.
And did she tell Mia about you?
Mia knew about me, but didn't know where I was or how to find me, but knew that I existed. I think I have that right. Was it earlier? Was it? I'm not sure that Mia knew then. She was only 6 when our mother died.
Mm.
Mm.
So, and then she went to live with our aunt and her family. Um, so they may have been the ones that told her, but she knew fairly early on. Yes.
And do you have a relationship now?
Oh yeah, Mia and I are close. It was I when I found out who my bio mother was, I got in touch with my aunt, her sister, who was 5, 6 years younger. Went to visit her. Mia was there. She was in high school and spent a weekend with them outside of Boston, which was amazing. Um, I got to know some of my mother's group of friends, and they were incredibly kind. They told me all about her and who she was and how she lived and all of these kinds of things. And
Uh-huh.
so between all of this, I put together a picture of her.
Yeah.
And did you find out about your father or what the birth story was? And
Okay, so she said it was a man who was in law school at the time, and through a lot of paper research and finding my original birth certificate, I looked him up. And while it was possible that he was my father, we weren't sure. Great man, really enjoyed. I spent a week. He flew me out to Washington, D.C., where he lived. I spent a weekend with him and his wife. Um,
Who you're not related to, I'm guessing, which is kind of funny.
yes, exactly. And at the end of it, he said, let's do a DNA test. This was in 1995. So there were paternity tests. They weren't common as DNA is now.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, Turned out we weren't at all related. So I went back to all the friends and the aunt and said, well, who else was there? Who could this be? They had no idea.
Oh, because she was really
No,
involved with him.
no, she wasn't. That had been a very brief
Oh,
relationship, um, a weekend
oh, okay.
in New York City. So that gave me where she was when she became pregnant. The timing was correct, but he was not the one. So clearly there was somebody else, and I was absolutely stuck. Nobody knew a thing. And then I got finally 23andMe came out. So I did a test. And the first thing that was shocking was that I was only half Jewish. If you look at me, you would think you're not Jewish at all. But it turned out that my mother, who was Jewish, and the man that she said it was also, and the
Oh,
family I grew up in was
so you're
Jewish.
thinking you're Jewish this whole time. Yeah.
Well,
On
everybody
both
had
sides. Yeah.
that was the pretty much the one thing that they said to me about my origin was you were Jewish. Your family was Jewish,
Mhm.
and I believed it. It turned out to be half true, but she had also told them that the
Right.
father was Jewish. So in any case,
I just like that this man would have been your father and been fine with it. A nice guy
pretty
about it.
much, yeah. And I really enjoyed his company. He was,
So
it
funny.
works.
Just goofy. Go on. Yeah.
So I had no idea, but the DNA test early on was helpful. So I had a non-Jewish father who had a lot of Finnish ancestry, and I knew that he was in New York City. So I began to try to put that together. Well, she was at Juilliard around the time I was born. Were there any Finns at Juilliard? And I,
But were there no matches that popped up on 23andMe?
oh, they were so distant. Fifth
Okay.
cousins, and not very
Yeah.
many. This is really early on.
Okay.
But in any case, in time, there was more that I could do with genetic genealogy. And I tested on all the different services and started looking at matches and drawing up family trees and triangulating and
Hmm.
doing the whole thing. At this time, I was living with my adoptive father had died. I was living with my adoptive mother, who was not well. She had lung cancer. I was taking care of her. And I was doing this while living in the house with her. So I had it completely shut down, doing it in secret. I had my laptop where I was doing the research. And I had two different identities on the laptop, one in which I could do the research, the other, to make sure
The
she
lengths we go to, right?
And
well,
did
it
had
was
you
like,
yet told her about finding out who your mother was? And
oh
so she knew
no,
nothing.
oh, she
Okay.
knew nothing, and she would
Wow.
have wanted to know nothing.
Yeah.
That's part of the way she was. Um, So the computer was completely locked down. I didn't talk about it. But meanwhile, I'm doing all this genealogical research. And it took a very long time until I found a likely, well, I found finally matched with a second cousin.
Okay.
Fantastic, who was not Jewish. So I knew that that person, and I had my sister test as well to try to eliminate a lot of
Hmm.
relatives that were related to her. Clearly, it wasn't on the father's side. So finally, I found a second cousin match, a woman in Australia. Fantastic. We share great grandparents. This
Okay.
is as close, it's been 5, 6, 7 years. This is as close as I've gotten.
Oh, still you haven't gotten.
Oh no, it was an immense amount of research to do this and a lot of false starts and,
Crazy.
making trees of, uh, common ancestors with people who I match with, same place on the same chromosome, all this kind of thing. So I finally found a second cousin, woman in Australia. I email her, no response. Email her again, nothing. I emailed her 5 times until she finally responded. And I said, look, I am looking for my biological father. I've been looking for more than 5 years. You're the closest I've gotten. Please, if you have a
Oh,
family tree, may I see it? If not, I'm having to draw one up for you.
yeah.
At which point she did get in touch. She didn't have a tree. She gave me all the information. I made the tree, and it was still not that clear who it was. I got her sister to test. I bought her sister a test to get a little more information. And it was still not at all obvious who it was going to be. Eventually, I made a guess. It could have been one of about 12 different men on the tree, and it also could, who were my grandfather. And it was also possible because World War II happened around the time that my father was born. It was also possible that the person was not on the tree at all.
Oh,
In
right.
other words, a soldier who has a relationship and then dies,
Exactly.
or doesn't know that he has a child or doesn't recognize.
Right. Other people have these things too. Right. Go on.
Yes, so many possibilities. So I come down to one very likely person because he's the only one in the tree in the United States. Everyone else is actually turns out not to be in Finland, but Estonia, or Australia or Sweden. Um, so I So I Google his name along with the name of my bio mother, and it comes up that they're in a dance performance together in New York City in 1974.
Bingo.
1974.
Right, I was born in 60.
Yes.
Still, he's the only one in the US, and the two of them are moving in the same circles in New York City.
Still, they're going around together. Interesting.
Yeah. So I decide to go visit him in New York. And I thought, how? I want to see who he is before I say anything, because I'm not that sure that he's even the one.
Yeah.
And what if I hate him? I might not want to say, oh, you might be my father.
Yeah.
So I called him up and said, I'm doing some genetic genealogy, and I think we're related, and I'm going to be in New York City next week. Can we have coffee? Sure, come. Yes. So I meet.
Now, did you tell him that you had a mutual acquaintance, your mother, or did
Not
you
yet,
not?
not yet.
Okay.
I didn't say anything. I really wanted to check him out. Plus, I was not sure. It was quite possible. It was the best possibility. It could have
You
been,
just thought you were just thinking, oh, we're related some. You're just some cousin somewhere or something.
yeah, fifth cousin, sixth
Yeah.
cousin,
Okay.
drawing up family trees.
Right.
And because I didn't want to travel across the country and find that he was out of town, or,
Right.
I
That's
thought
smart.
I'd better call and just make up the story. Yes, I'm going to be in New York City.
Yeah.
Let's meet for coffee. Um, so he lived in Chelsea. I came to his apartment. He came out, and we walked around and looked at art galleries for about 3 hours. Just looked at art, didn't talk. I didn't mention anything. Really enjoyed it and enjoyed the way he was seeing the art, the way we were discussing it. And then we went for lunch. And at the end of the lunch, he said, well, so how do you think we're related? And I had a picture of my mother when she was 20 or so, the time when he knew her, would have known her, handed it to him, looks at it, says, I remember her. At which point I'm pretty sure he was shocked. He had no idea. She had said it was the other man.
Yeah.
So
So
he'd known she was pregnant, but he thought it was some.
no, he
Oh,
had
okay.
no idea that she was pregnant. She
Oh,
was
okay.
pregnant, moved from New York out to Berkeley, told the other man that this was his child.
Yeah.
And so he had no idea about any of this. We ended up doing testing, and he turned out to be the one.
He was shocked. Did he have other children?
No other children,
Oh.
never married. Um,
Was he excited about it?
he was bewildered initially,
Yeah.
and then he grew to be very excited and delighted about it. And we developed a very good relationship. I came to visit him quite a number of times. We ended up going to Estonia together, where he grew up,
Wow.
and to
Wow.
Germany, where he also grew up. And we became fairly close. We spoke on the phone every couple of weeks, had long conversations about art, usually, and
Yeah.
about history and about his life. And it was incredibly important to both of us. He died in 2023 at
Hmm.
89 years old.
And
But
had you still not told like you were found him and you didn't tell your adoptive mother?
oh no, oh no. Plus, she was very sick at this time. She was dying from lung cancer. There was no way I could do that with her at that point. So I learned that he was my father in December of 2017, and then she died in February of 2018.
Mm.
Okay.
Um,
And then you had about 6 years with him.
exactly,
Yeah. Okay.
exactly.
Did your adoptive brother know?
Yes, I had told him certain things about this all the way along. He didn't like to discuss it particularly, but he knew everything,
Yeah.
and
He'd
kept it.
just listen and be like, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I could trust him about that,
Yeah.
and he didn't feel so threatened.
And then, so your father had no kids, never got married, uh,
No,
remembered your mother, but was shocked. So I'm guessing it was just like a quick fling type of thing.
it was a 4-day relationship,
Okay.
Oh.
actually, and he told me the whole story.
Relationship.
Yes, exactly. Told me the whole story about it. About how there were two groups of a group of men, a group of women that were at a restaurant, and they got together, and then she ended up going home with him and stayed for 4 days, and that was that.
And then she had the lawyer guy or whatever, your other fake father in DC, right around the same time.
Yes, exactly. And so he sounded a lot better for me to get adopted. He had gone to Harvard, was in Yale Law School.
Oh,
Maybe it's the opposite. I've forgotten. He was Jewish. He was
Jewish.
very,
Hmm.
just the kind of person that a Jewish family would want.
Good for paper.
Not a perennial artistic bachelor from
Yeah,
Estonia.
exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Right.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. This is crazy. It's such a gift to him too, to have you in his life. Like for both of you.
It was great for both of us. It
Yeah.
really, beyond just the pleasure and, of having that relationship with him, it grounded me.
Yeah.
Um, it changed my sense of who I am in the world
Yeah.
in a very big way. As an artist, we want to know where we come from. I
Hmm.
mean, as
As
an any,
adoptees, we want to know where we come from.
absolutely,
Uh,
absolutely. But in making art, um, many artists start with who they are in the world, where they come from, and go from there. And I had this ridiculous story about being a redhead in a hospital. Um,
These
there was
stories.
a nothing. And it was really interesting at the time, just before I figured out who he was, I was doing a lot of figurative painting. And all of the people in my paintings were floating. I couldn't get them grounded. They didn't, as if gravity did not apply to them. And afterwards, after I got to know him, there was a settling down.
Mhm.
Suddenly, my figures had weight. They stood on the ground, and it was
Right.
it was just visible in the artwork.
It speaks volumes, just your story. People just get over it. It doesn't matter. You spend years researching, years looking when you're little. This is how it is. Like people don't really understand you know, if you're not adopted, you're like, what's the big deal? But yet they have their roots. So it's like they just can't imagine. The grounding is big, I just think.
It's
Calms your
enormous.
soul. Hmm.
It's enormous. It's our origin story,
Yes, it
mhm.
is.
and we don't have one.
No.
And worse than
Not
that,
only do we not have one, often we're giving a false one.
False one.
So it'd almost be better to give nothing than some
Yes,
made up fantasy
that's
story.
right.
absolutely. So I really felt growing up that there's a disconnect
Yeah,
Hmm.
between who I actually am, which is unknown, and then how I'm supposed to present myself.
right.
So there's a way in which I'm playing a role as the daughter in this family, but it's real yet it's not real.
It's so weird. Hmm.
Totally weird.
And then just the fact that you have this pediatrician your whole life you're thinking's involved, that's kind of funny too. There's so many, why would they do that? What's the point of that story? It's just silly.
I do like that you had that
Yes,
therapist friend
me
of the
too.
family who said this is going to be key. Don't discount this
Super
because that
surprising.
also wasn't common in those eras either. We talk about this often, like going to therapy and
Right.
no therapist, in my case, they focused on traumas
Divorce.
after, like parent divorce, mother leaving, not the initial relinquishment
Adoption.
trauma. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, she
Which is
was
where everything stems from. Everything stems from that.
Absolutely.
she
Absolutely. It's the
was she was
origin.
ahead of her
Mhm.
time because that's just not that common.
Yeah. Very, very smart and kind person.
And
We
so now where are you at in life?
Yeah.
You've got Mia, you've got your mother's family that you're
uh,
still.
still connected with. And then I have this Estonian piece with my father. I am starting to develop relationships with my cousins. Uh, I'm going to Estonia in June for the second time with one of the cousins from Australia, the brother of the
Oh,
How much fun.
uh,
The brother of the woman you called? That
yeah,
who you're
exactly, who
like,
I wrote to 5 times before.
can you respond here?
Yes, exactly. This is just a casual ask.
Yeah.
wow. How
Yes. So that part is developing. And it's very interesting at age 55 to learn, which is when I learned about the Estonian piece, to have, and it makes sense too,
Mm-hmm.
to have this large part of my identity and then take it on. But it does feel really right. Estonian, like adoptee, is one of those small tribes that I belong to,
Mm-hmm.
and it really feels right.
That's so
Um,
neat. I like
yeah.
this
Wow.
story. I like the fact you walked around with your father for 3 hours. He's just looking at art. Were you thinking, this is my father?
Well, and did you see a physical
Yeah,
resemblance? And did you have a physical resemblance to your
right.
mother?
I had some physical resemblance to my father. The one thing I looked at my father, he was already
See,
83 or so when I
right.
met him, and I said, "This man is so old." Thinking in my head. Um, Later, as I saw pictures of him when he was younger, there is a strong physical
Yeah.
resemblance. I look much more like him than like my mother.
Okay.
But it wasn't obvious because in some ways, people that are that old just look old.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Gestures sometimes, though,
It's
that
the
it's the
gesture.
little subtle things that sometimes you can find
Right.
similarities in.
Yeah, that happened with my mother. Evidently, I have her gestures.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw my aunt and made certain gestures, she stopped in her tracks. She said, "Oh, Anya used to do that." She
Oh,
saw that. So what I got from here and what I got from there um, is very interesting. Visually, I look much more like my father, thus
mm-hmm.
the not Jewish looking.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever Jewish looking means, that's a whole other conversation, not for here. But actually, as a person, he's the person that I am most like in the world. The way
Mm-hmm.
he thinks, or thought, the way he saw things, um, it really made sense to me.
It must feel so complete to
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
have that,
absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely.
I feel the same. I didn't get to meet my father, but just piecing together who he was, and I feel very similar to him, and grief that I didn't get to know
Yes.
him or have grew up with him and all that stuff. So,
Of course. Yeah. So, getting back to this idea of feeling different and disconnected from the family that we grew up in, I think that that has really helped me as an artist in a certain way, and that I was able to, I am able to disengage from the world around me and to have this large interior
hmm
imaginative space.
Mm-hmm. I think that's quite common.
hmm
It's interesting. Someone in my weekly writing group with adoptees was saying that almost everyone that she meets that does something in, like adoptees have another level that's almost we don't want to think of it as a gift because it's a strange thing, but maybe it is our gift that we get from all this stuff, right? Like the ability to be in a different mind. That's, you're always
Yes.
kind of going to a different place when you're young. So it's just, and you don't have to be creative. Like a lot of people have it. It's interesting to me that you brought that up.
You're an insider, yet you're an outsider.
Yes.
You fit, but you don't fit at the
hmm
same
Mm-hmm.
time. You're
Mm-hmm.
pretending to be like, but you're not like. It's,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, don't belong where you're raised, don't have shared history
Yes.
with the people you belong with. So it's very lots of layers and
Yes.
absolutely. Absolutely.
well, I'm so glad you have this connection. You're going to Estonia, and that's so great.
Yeah. No, I feel very, well, you don't want to talk
Grounded.
back here, but I'll say grounded. It feels very good. And it was quite odd to spend time with my father and various extended family members there because I literally do not speak the language. So most things are happening in Estonian,
Right.
and maybe somebody was around translating for me some of the time, or they were just involved in the conversation. but still I felt incredibly comfortable,
Just
like I
comfortable.
fit.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So
You're with your people.
exactly. And I could feel that.
Yeah.
There's a way in which I just relaxed deeply.
Is there somewhere that people could see your art that we could send a link to? And
Sure, I have a website.
yeah, be
Um,
great.
I've, in the last 5 years since my mother died, which, I was devastated. We were very close, so it was really
Mhm.
tough. But at the same point, that was a release
Yeah, of
for me.
course. Yeah.
And I have since that time been making art that in some way relates, maybe not directly, but in some way relates to the adoptee experience. Um, I did a large show of 39 paintings that were about my DNA connection to my mother, my father, and my sister, and
Wow.
installed those in a long hallway
Oh,
in a decorator showcase house in the neighborhood I grew up in.
that's pretty cool.
And so it was the sense of walking through a domestic space, a hallway. It was the bedroom level hallway, surrounded by family and connection and DNA, yet no one would be able to read that unless I told them what it was.
Right. That's neat.
Yeah, we'd love to
I
see
would love to
links to
see
all
that.
this stuff. We'll put it in our show notes when your
Wonderful.
episode airs. Yeah. Thank
That's on my
you,
list.
Diane. This has been a really deep and interesting
Yes.
conversation.
And thanks to both of you. I love your podcast. It's
Thank you.
wonderful to have as a
Thank you.
resource for adoptees.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. For us too. I mean, it's as much as it helps others, it helps us. So keeps us grounded.
Yeah, it keeps us, we learned something that I wasn't making that up. Each guest, you kind of go, oh, you walk away and have a new, we're all in this together.
We are, and we're our own community.
We are.
We are
I
definitely.
always feel a particular connection to
Yeah.
other adoptees.
Yeah. I wish we had
Yes.
met you so that you could have come to our live event we had in California, but we'll do another one.
All
So,
right. Well, the next one, I will be.
yes,
Yes.
we love it. All right.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Diane.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that was another interesting, a lot of depth. Very,
Yeah,
I love artists, right?
me
They're
too.
so
Love her.
contemplative and, thoughtful and observant and
Yes. I was going to say to her, Diane, I love your vibe. I love your
hmm
vibe. And I would love her to show art at one of our events. I just think that is neat. Love that. Be
Yeah.
wonderful to come up, like having an installation of some point. I don't know.
Yeah, people don't know what we're talking about, but we talked after we stopped recording about
Yeah.
Diane's art and maybe we could incorporate it in an
Yeah.
event. But I'm so
That's
glad
great.
she had those last years with her father.
Yeah.
That was really,
I can picture her walking around for 3 hours with this man. If they're similar, like that's her dad, and she's still evaluating, but they're just talking about art. And it seems like he's kind of similar to her because he didn't even say, so how are we related until they went to lunch, which is
yeah,
fascinating to me.
yeah. So well, that was great. It was
And
great to meet her.
her mother watched her. I do
I
it.
know.
That
I
is,
She
oof,
must have been a strong human because how hard would that be to watch your
seriously.
child, to know who your child is and to watch and
Seriously, that's another level of like really loving your daughter and what you said, restraint. I don't know that I could do that.
I know. Wow. That was
I
a
know.
real twist that I
A real
wasn't
twist.
expecting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what do we say?
Another great episode.
Another great episode. See you next time.
See you next time.